Hey y'all, this is Billy from Perma Pastures Farm. Anybody that's been keeping up with what we've been doing knows that the game plan for a little while now is to try and surround the entire property in woven wire, also covered with this hot wire. Now we still got half of the property to go up the back side, and that's going to be the hardest part of this whole thing, but right now it's not going to prevent me from showing what it is we got going on and the overall permaculture design. Now, within this farm, we got animals that we need to protect. We have trees. We got all these other things, gardens. We want all this stuff protected. Now, there's no way to make it foolproof, but by using a combination of permaculture, common sense, and I'd even say Army doctrine, we've come up with a plan, and I'd say we came up with this plan somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2015 when it comes to the design that we have. And I got to be honest with you folks, it's been enormously successful in 3 different states. So here we are now trying to get it all set up on this property. So we're to the point where I have the equivalent of about half mile of this hot wire going around the perimeter of the front half of this property. Okay, so now it's time to get it hot. Now what I got in front of me now is a 1 joule solar charger. Now I've discussed chargers in the past, and I'm not a big fan of these, but I'm going to show you if used in the right way and in a temporary capacity, they absolutely do what I need them to get done. But first thing we got to do is drive this ground rod. We got this 6-foot ground rod, 5/8 rod, copper clad anyway. All I'm going to do, and some of you have seen me do this before. In fact, my buddy Craig, Army buddy, my buddy from back in Oklahoma, tried this the other day, even in that hard red Oklahoma soil. And he sent me a text the other day, couldn't believe how well it worked. Well, here you go. I'm going to do it again. I'll demonstrate it, I think, for the 3rd time on this channel. Now, like I said, little disclaimer, don't do this on your house. It's okay to do it for your field fence and things of that nature. So just made a little hole, put a little water in it, and you're just going to back and forth. Okay, when you go about as far as you can, put a little more water in the hole. And then get back to it. Now I lost my hole. Okay, there it is. Gained a little more. There you go. 6-foot rod in the ground. Okay, we're ready to rock and roll. Now, we're going to take this handy dandy charger, and I'm going to show you why I'm a fan and not a fan at the same time of these. Okay, go ahead and take your black, put it on your ground rod. Truth is, I could put it on this engineer rod because the ground conductivity is probably just fine here. I'm going to take the other end of this, stick it up here. We'll turn it on. Okay, so we got this thing hot. At least we hope it is. Let's get up here and test it. All right, so we're right at 5,800 volts. And folks, that's cooking. In fact, cooking so much that my little friends behind me came up here not long after we fired it up to test it, got zapped on it, and that's why they're over there now. So, okay, so we know that we're hot, and we have a 1 joule charger powering more than a half mile of fencing. This is a temporary thing. This isn't going to be permanent. We're going to eventually power all of this, the entire property from the permaculture barn, and also from one other place. But before we get to that, let's talk about the tethering system that we invented about 6 years ago. All right, so we have a perimeter fence all the way around, right? Well, let's just pretend we do for now. But still, this is part of the grand permaculture design that we came up with over 6 years ago. Now, the idea being is that we have, in our case right now, we have from the house an AC charger that has a hot wire going straight down the middle of the property. And then we take this, in this case, number 14 THHN wire, and we basically we bring it onto the trunk line and then drag it out, take a piece and then just basically roll it out to wherever the sheep fencing is or wherever the poultry netting is. Now, we've been doing this system for quite a while and it's served us very well. Well, for this place, we're going to do like we did one of the places in Texas. And we had a perimeter fence all the way around. We got a hot wire all the way around. Now, why do that? Why does that make any sense? Number one, when you have a livestock guardian dog, Great Pyrenees, Anatolian Shepherd, especially the Pyrenees, they're going to want to travel. In fact, they will climb this fence. We've seen it. I've actually seen 130-pound Pyrenees climb up over the fence and get out. Well, the idea is when Milk Boy gets a little bit frisky and decides he wants to go somewhere else, well, this is going to be sitting here waiting on him, and it's only going to happen one time, and he's going to know it. But that seems like a lot of infrastructure, right? It's not just that. It's also this tethering system that we invented a long, long time ago. And in this particular case, it gives us even more options than we currently have. It's because no matter where that sheep is located, no matter where that chicken is located, no matter where their enclosure is, I can always tether and then take my little spool here. All right, so we got the wire stripped, okay? And it's always best to be able to use the factory provided clip that they have at the very end of it. But when you do this, it's not always going to be, unless you go through a bunch of extra hassle, it's never going to be exactly where you want it. So if you use this method, and this is my method, basically wrap it around the top strand and do it near a post. And you know what? As a side note, folks, I want to give a big shout out to all you people out there that take some of the more original ideas we have here and you offer attribution every time you use it. You reference us, and I do thank you for that. But for some of the larger channels out there, and you know who you are, you're taking these ideas and you're passing them off as your own, and I would only ask that you offer just a tad bit of attribution. You're not going to lose 100,000 people out there because you referenced the people that gave you the idea. All right, part of more of this design that we have out here in this permaculture design that's coming together is we have a knife switch at least 1, 2, 3, 4, before it's all said and done, 5 different locations. Now, why would I do that? Well, number one, if you want to get out of this gate right here, unless you want to sit here and kind of act as if you're holding a teaspoon of nitroglycerin trying to get out of this gate and not get blasted with 6,000 volts, well, then you're going to want to switch. So it comes down the hill, around this way, all along this fence, and in order to get out the gate, let's say it's hot right here, right? Well, bam, I could either walk right out it, drive out of it, it doesn't matter. So now I can either open this switch, everything going this way up the property is off, and then when I close it, it's back on. Now, let's check our voltage down here. Okay, with the switch open, going all the way back, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of about, okay, 6,500 volts. Now, let's see the difference. I'm gonna take it off, close this, and now it's going another quarter mile up the way here. Let's check the voltage now. Okay, I wish I could show you, but just take my word for it. It's about 5,500 volts. Okay, so really, this is a 1 joule charger kicking 5,500 volts through a half mile. That's pretty impressive. But when you get to the point where you start adding the tethering system onto it, that little solar rinky-dink number up there, it ain't gonna do the trick, I promise you. That's one of the big problems I have with those things. Even on one net, it's touch and go unless you have that grass clipped down real low, which we never do in this environment because we're never gonna have it looking like a golf green. It's always gonna be touching. It's always gonna be a nightmare unless you kick up the rating of your charger. But let's go back to these switches. So what does this afford me? Number one, I can get out of the gate. Or let's say I have a problem on that side of the property. It's being fed from over here. Well, I can now isolate it and work on that problem without having to go back there and turn it off. Well, let's go look at the other switch I have. It's hot here. Okay, now we're gonna move over to this other side of the gate. You might be wondering, why on earth would he put a switch on each side of the gate? Why is that even necessary? Well, folks, the big reason here is 2 is 1. Like I said, we're a combination of military doctrine, preparedness, permaculture, homesteading, all into one. And one of those mottos is 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And what do I mean by that? Right now we got one charger feeding this whole line, and it's easily able to do it. But now over there, as a system of redundancy, I can either have everything fed from that point over to this switch, or let's say I had an obstruction over here, had a repair, or the thing may have just went out on me. Let's say that charger is no longer working. Well, just like this, I now make the circuit all the way through. It's now hot. So there's a level of redundancy where this is fed from 2 different spots, and it can work any number of ways. It just requires a little bit of imagination. Now, you're not going to want 2 chargers going at the same time unless you have one of these switches open. And then the cool thing is, back in that corner of the property, another switch just like it. Now, some people may like it. Some people will make a switch out of a handle where you can just kind of hook it on there. I prefer these because it's kind of universal on how to do it. All right, make sure if you're out here, somebody's going to no doubt think, well, hey, I got a switch. I got an extra switch when we wired this house. Go ahead and try that. And I'm telling you right now, it ain't going to work, because with the voltage, when it's this high, the open part of your switch, it's always going to jump across. It's never going to go off, and you're always going to hear a click, click, click. So when you deal with higher voltages like that, you need a knife switch, something like that, where it's not just going to arc across there and then keep going with the circuit. So keep that in mind, folks. So let's just kind of recap. What we have is basically a perimeter hot wire that goes all the way around, goes through this gate. It's all hot. The entire perimeter is hot. And we're able to tether from each one of those sources, no matter where we need it, a piece of wire to go to whatever poultry netting or whatever sheep netting we need. So there's the cool part of that tethering system. It can operate this entire area. It keeps our dog in, and our dog keeps the deer and all the other things out. Now, in addition to that, folks, what you see here, this little dark marking here, is Michelle went through every single post. It didn't matter if it was metal, wood, it didn't matter. So in addition to the bone sauce that we have on all the trees, it's now on every single post on the perimeter of this property. And anybody that wonders what this bone sauce is, go back and watch that video. We'll leave a link up there for you. Go back and watch and see how that is an awesome deterrent for browsers. So folks, I know we hit you with a lot here, and hopefully it makes a little bit of sense. If you have any questions, leave them down below. We'll answer them for you. So folks, until next time, this is Billy, the Permaculture Pimp Daddy, where PIMP stands for Permaculture is my passion. We'll see you next time.